Awesome. Thanks so much for the intro, Liz. I appreciate that and appreciate the opportunity to come and share a little bit of knowledge that I have. I know we're all a work in progress and we're all learning in the different stages that we're at, but I'm just grateful to be able to share what I have so far. So yeah.
So just so we get to know you a little bit better, what got you interested in the PA profession in the first place?
Sure. So my intro, I guess, is a little bit different from a lot of folks, just because some people say, "Hey, I didn't really know too much about the PA profession until, say, like late in college or after college." But for me, I pretty much knew what a PA was since I was little. My dad's also a PA, so he came here from Cambodia as a refugee in the early '80s, became a PA in the late '80s. I was born a few years after that, and so always had him in my life as like somebody to look up to. But I didn't grow up with him, so therefore we weren't very close until I was like going into college. I thought I wanted to do like film. That's why I was like a filmmaking major. So had nothing really to do with medicine until I started volunteering and started like getting into the healthcare field and like shadowing PAs that my dad knew, shadowing other providers, and also just like picking his brain. And I was like, dang, like my dad and I have a lot in common. And so once I decided like PA was the route for me, I see so many similarities in myself and him. Like he's gone on medical missions, I've gone on medical missions. He's always giving back to the community. I try to as well, and we're literally in the same specialty right now. So it's like super crazy that it's just kind of come full circle. So I'm grateful to be lucky enough to have somebody like that I can look up to and I talk to. And like I said, as I got older and got into the PA profession, like I just feel like we can talk about a lot of things now. We're more connected, and so yeah, that's who introduced me to the profession.
That's amazing. We've had a couple of discussions about how people have not known the existence of the PA profession until we were much older. So I'm really glad that you had that amazing role model from such a young age. What specialty do you currently practice in, and what types of populations do you treat at your current place of practice?
Yeah, so I'm in occupational medicine and urgent care. So it's a pretty diverse group in terms of age and ethnicity. So and for myself, I float from different clinics to different clinics. So I'm not sure if folks are familiar with like the Southern California area, but I float as far down south as like Lake Forest, Irvine in Orange County, and as far north as like LAX. So all those clinics in between. Like I said, patient population is totally different in Irvine as it is in Compton versus LAX and Anaheim. So it all varies. But I would say on a daily basis, I'm using Spanish every day, at least like 3 or 4 patients per day. Um, and so I'm glad I have that Spanish speaking background, even though I'm Cambodian. I took Spanish in high school and in college, and my PA program actually had an optional medical Spanish. And I'm kind of disappointed that a lot of my classmates didn't take advantage of it, because I'm like, working in Southern California or anywhere really, but especially in Southern California, I feel like it's extremely necessary to have Spanish, conversational Spanish background. So I'm seeing patients who are undocumented and they are working and they get injured, and or trying to get a job and trying to get cleared for their physicals, or walking in as urgent care. I see like military folks who have TRICARE or PPO. So it's a varied spectrum. Like I said, different age as well, but for the most part, as a clinic, we don't really take very many peds patients, unless it's like sports physicals, or like for urgent care, we don't really take them. So that's kind of the only population that we don't really see too much of. But I see Spanish speaking patients. I see white collar workers, I see like blue collar workers, I see, folks who don't speak any English and are Asian, or, it's just all varies. So yeah, it's a pretty diverse patient population.
What healthcare discrepancies have you seen with these populations that we as future healthcare providers should be aware of?
I think one of the biggest things is, just kind of folks having access to healthcare, right? Just in general, regardless of what specialty we're in. But so some of these patients, especially the Hispanic population in the LA and Orange County area, their family's livelihood and their livelihood depends on their financial income, right? And so their ability to work, their ability to provide for their family. And so if they're hurt and are unable to, work, that's gonna, take food off the table for them. Or, patients who drive trucks, and, it's not even just Hispanic patients either. We have a good amount of African American patients who have diabetes and obesity, and also, white patients who have sleep apnea or obesity and diabetes and stuff. So these are things like when I do the DOT physicals, I have to educate them on it. Like, hey, typically you'll get a 2-year certification, but because of your comorbid conditions, because of these medical conditions, I'm unable to clear you. And like, yeah, it's upsetting for them, but I'm like, I also have to take a look into the safety of the general population, right? I can't put a patient or clear a patient who has sleep apnea, and they might be a risk of falling asleep driving like an 18-wheeler. That can be dangerous for drivers on the freeway, families and stuff like that. So one of the medical directors I work with, he put it into perspective. He said, if your wife and kids were driving at 4 a.m. on the freeway for whatever reason, and they were driving next to this truck, and this driver lost control for whatever reason, whether it's a cardiac issue, diabetes, sleep apnea, whatever, would you feel comfortable clearing this person? So that really put things into perspective. But like I said, you have to weigh out that plus this person's livelihood, right? So one instance that I kind of wanted to share, especially for today, was there was an older Hispanic gentleman who had been out of work for like the past year and a half, 2 years, because his diabetes was not under control. And he, didn't have a primary care provider. So he tried to like figure out how to get his diabetes under control. And one of my colleagues was just like, nope, I can't clear you. Boom, like that's it. End of story. You have to figure it out. But when he came back in to try to get cleared, we were like, hey, let's try to work this out. We, tried to educate him and try to set him up with like free clinics that would be able to take him on as a patient and get his diabetes under control. So long story short, we were able to get it. He came in and he thought he was just going to get cleared for like a 3-month certification. But I was like, sir, like you're not leaking any sugar in your urine. Your blood glucose was normal. We can actually clear you. And his A1C, when he brought it in, it was under the control to where we can clear him for like a year. And when we told him that, and we were like, we're going to not just clear you, but clear you for a full year, he started crying because he was like, literally, I just needed 1 more year of work before I can retire. And this is like that year. So he was just grateful that we were able to kind of like go above and beyond instead of just like, nope, sorry, clear cut number, you're out, right? Like they, so that to me just kind of showed like we actually have a lot more say and power in terms of not just their health, but like their livelihood, right? So like their finances, their occupation and stuff like that. So it was pretty rewarding to have him do that. And then, other circumstances where patients come in and yeah, they'll have a little bit of like white coat syndrome, and they'll come in and their blood pressure is a little elevated when we're taking it. And they're like, look, it's usually not high, blah, blah, blah. Some providers would be like, nope, sorry, it's like 142/91. Like you're not going to be able to get past. But I'll work with them and be like, hey, just lay down, chill in this room for like 15 minutes. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to take it manually. I'm going to take it on your right arm. I'm going to have you lay down. Because like it's literally a couple points off for their blood pressure in terms of like a 2-year certification or a 1-year certification, right? And like I said, like their livelihood, right? So, I don't want them to have to go through that whole process, especially if it's like that close to the borderline. If it was like heavily elevated, then yeah, it's for their own safety and for the public safety. But I'll be able to kind of um, play around with that in terms of like trying to get their blood pressure lower, and just trying our best to take a look at the patient as a whole, right? As opposed to just like straight numbers and straight weight and stuff like that. And like, for their BMI, right? Everybody's BMI is different, but at the same time, you have to take in consideration the clothes that they had on while they were getting weighed in and stuff like that, right? So just trying my best to put myself in that patient's perspective, like, all right, if they're unable to work for X amount of time, they're not going to be able to provide for their family. They're not going to be able to provide for themselves. So just trying to take everything into consideration. So
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think it's very important to look at the patient as a whole, not just as a set of lab values, like in this example. So on that thought, is there any education of your peers that you feel needs to be done to be better providers for the populations that you see on a regular basis?
yeah, absolutely. I think, culturally speaking, just taking a look at patients and what they're eating on a daily basis in terms of their diet, what their family typically eats, cooks, etc. Like not everybody has access to Whole Foods and Sprouts and Trader Joe's and stuff like that, right? You got to look at where they live. Are there like food deserts? Are there areas where there's like a high obesity and diabetes, rate? So like it kind of goes back to like not just taking a look at them from like like a lab value, figure, but more holistically, right? You have to understand also patients who come in and quote unquote are non-compliant with their physical therapy treatments or their medical visits and stuff. Instead of just being like, hey, we're discharging you, you missed too many appointments. It's like, all right, why aren't you able to come? They're like, we don't have any cars. Like, we have to either use public transportation or you take an Uber here. And so there's also services with our clinic where we can actually call an Uber for the patient to come to therapy and or the medical visit. So just being able to communicate that. And so just really, like I said, trying to take a look at it as a whole, like ask, why is this happening? Instead of like, hey, this isn't happening because X, Y, and Z. Or like, why are you not taking your, naproxen or whatever? And they're like, well, because it causes, GI issues. So, all right, well, if it's causing GI issues and or like, hey, you can't take oral NSAIDs, let's try a topical. It's just trying to figure things out and go that extra step to really, because like my dad's kind of taught me this since I decided to go into medicine. Like medicine is a science, right? At its basis, it's a science, but the practice of medicine is an art, right? So we're all different in terms of like the way we practice medicine, the way we see these patients. There's no like one clear-cut answer for each patient. One patient might respond well to 5 milligrams of cyclobenzaprine versus another patient, like 5 will knock them out, or like one patient can take 10 and be totally fine. So it just all varies. And I think that's kind of something I wish my peers would understand a little bit more in terms of like trying to take a step back and take a look at how they are. And then, like I said earlier, just being able to speak multiple languages and not necessarily like fluently, but enough to show like the patient, like, hey, I'm making an effort to communicate with you and understand and try to understand. And like my medical Spanish is good, but there's going to be times where I'm like, un momento por favor, I'm going to go get my assistant, then we'll come in and then boom, all right, oh, okay, I get what you're saying and stuff like that. So just being able to, like I said, spend that extra time, because yeah, it's a busy clinic, but each patient there deserves like my full attention and everything. Like the way that our company operates, like we're supposed to document in the room and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. I still don't. I mean, because A, I have a scribing background, so I type pretty fast, and B, like I use my macros, which are the game changer, and C, I feel like it's rude when I'm like charting and the patient's talking to me, right? So I'll literally pull up the chair. I'm just talking to them. I'm not writing anything down. I'm trying to remember everything and like just giving them that attention. And I feel like patients respond better to it because they're like, wow, you actually care about what I have to say. You actually care about how I'm feeling and stuff like that, you know? So we'll talk, we'll do the HPI and stuff like that, do a quick physical exam, talk to them, give them my thoughts on the game plan, get their insight. Like, what do you think about this? So for example, like we have not just physical therapy available at our disposal for patients, but chiro and acupuncture. And so I'm like, hey, so a lot of patients with this type of injury respond pretty well to physical therapy and acupuncture. Are you open to trying that? Some would be like, yeah, I've never tried that before. I'm open. Some patients would be like, no, I don't like needles. Like, not a problem. Like we can get you better in other ways. So, or patients who are like, look, I prefer not to take medications. Do you have anything else? So we'll do like conservative treatments with therapies. So like I said, just really trying to understand and put them in the thought process in game plan mode, right? Just because I have the PA degree doesn't mean like I call the shots and that's it, right? So just I wish more of the peers were like that, but everybody is different. I've had some patients who see multiple of us PAs and they're like, I don't want to see this person anymore. I'm going to reschedule it to whenever you are here, X, Y, and Z. I legit had a patient. He was like, are you a doctor? I was like, no, I'm a PA. He's like, you're better than the doctors that I saw. And I'm like, I appreciate that, but everybody's different, etc. And then there was even one patient who was like, so am I going to see you from here on out? I was like, no, I actually float from different clinic to different clinic. He's like, well, can you schedule me next week here? But if you're not here, can you let me know where you're at? And I was like, oh, sure. So once I found out my schedule, I called out the patient. I was like, hey, sir, I'm going to be at the El Segundo location. He's like, okay, I'm going to call them to reschedule to go over there. I was like, dang. So this patient legit like followed me from one clinic to another just because he liked the experience that I was giving him. And like, it meant a lot because I'm like, look, I'm just a PA. I'm just a new grad PA, but like I try my best to give them the care that I feel like they deserve. And maybe it's my like eagerness early on, but at the same time, I feel like I am put in this position for that opportunity to improve the quality of life for these patients.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you're doing an amazing job, like we talked about earlier, of like treating them as a person and not as a number. What are some resources that you can recommend for those who want to learn more about treating different populations?
I would say, I came across this one PA who created like a medical Spanish online course or something, like a 10-day boot camp that they posted on the Physician Assistants of Color Facebook group. So I haven't used it yet, but I thought that was a cool resource to have. Medical Spanish classes on books and resources like that. Attending the CME lectures where they're talking about different patient populations. And I feel like just kind of reverting back to, our PA school lectures. We at our PA program, we had lectures with regards to patients in the LGBT plus community, our medical Spanish, and, when we had standardized patients of different colors and stuff like that. So I feel like the more exposure we get early on in our training, the better. And just trying to step out of our comfort zone, like there's going to be patients where we've never seen this ethnicity before, right? Or have never spoken this language before, and we still got to do our best. I have a patient who speaks only Japanese. Nobody in my clinic speaks Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, so like, and for our clinic, unfortunately, we don't have like a translator program for some locations, especially the one that he goes to. So I'm pulling out Google Translate, and we're like, even though the appointment goes way longer because we have to type back and forth or like talk back and forth to each other, at least now we're on the same page. So just different resources like that, and just each other, reach out to different PAs who are connected with this specific population or this specific resource. And that's how we grow ourselves, by growing our network and growing our humility in terms of like, hey, I don't know this, I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna reach out and stuff like that, right? So I have no shame in not just asking my dad and calling him up like, hey, dad, like, what would you do in this situation for this patient in this specialty? But also have friends who are like ortho PAs, and I'll be like, hey, this patient's MRI said X, Y, and Z. Do you think this is a surgical case? Should I send him out to ortho, or should I just treat it conservatively? They're like, yeah, we pretty much wouldn't operate on them, but you can still send them to ortho X, Y, and Z. So, just connecting and getting like other folks who you can consult with is definitely helpful. So,
Absolutely. Those are great recommendations. Thank you. And then what advice do you have for any PA students that are transitioning to practice?
oof. Um, Treat every rotation as if it's like your job interview. Honestly, you don't know what kind of job offers you're going to get. I was I was already set on doing cardiac electrophysiology. I It was the doctor I scribed for before PA school, and I hit him up, and he was like, "Yo, this is perfect timing. I need a PA X, Y, and Z." And this is maybe like 2 months before I was about to graduate, so I was already like sitting on that. And then I go into my last rotation, and I just wanted to test the waters and say, hey, I spoke to my preceptor and I was like, so what's the likelihood that you guys would like hire a new grad? Like very rare, like you guys are still very green and raw as clinicians. This is a difficult specialty with like a high learning curve because, it's not like emergency medicine or family medicine. Um, I would recommend for new grads to go into that first. And I was like, I totally understand. And so pretty much long story short, he was like, yeah, no, we wouldn't hire you. To literally the last day I was working with him, he's like, yo, you got to come back and work for us. Like, I'll vouch for you. I'll talk to the head medical director, blah, blah, blah. So he recommended me to her, uh, took the pants on the first last year on December 1st, had an interview the very next day. So after the pants, I literally went to like Office Max to go get resume paper, fixed it up, and then came back in the next day, did the, interview, another second interview a couple days later. I got the offer like a few days before I even found out I passed the pants. And I was like, dang, like this is too good of an offer to pass up because I don't have to move. The salary was comparable, and I was just like, as much as I wanted to do cardiac EP, I felt like, as cliche as it sounds, I was like, it was in my blood to follow like my dad's footsteps and not just become a PA, but become the same specialty. So it was pretty cool. So I decided to just come back and work there. But like I said, like you never know what kind of opportunities are going to come up. I had my surgery PA preceptor reach out to me like not too long ago. She's like, hey, we need a full-time general surgery PA. Are you interested? Like it's yours if you want it. And I was like, dude, I suck at general surgery. Like, why did you even reach out to me? She's like, we can teach you the skills, but you were bright in the rotation. So like you can't, and I was like willing to help and do all extra stuff. And so she was like, if you want it, it's yours. So just keep your connections too. You never know what doors are going to open. And then especially early on, it's going to be frustrating. Like I probably wanted to quit. I don't know how many times in the first few months. I was like, nope, this specialty isn't for me. Nope, being a PA isn't for me. But just kind of stick with it. And then it was also kind of like, all right, just be a sponge and literally like learn every day as much as you can from each patient encounter, from each provider. Like thank goodness where I was at for training, like the first 2 months, I was working literally every day, every single shift with at least one doctor and one PA. So I was the third provider and I would pick their brains. Like I would ask them everything. And so it got to the point where like, I was efficient enough to like, I would say half a year into it, they put me out on my own. And I was like, about to poop my pants, but I just kind of hung through. And then from here on out, now I'm like literally every day by myself. Obviously I still have my medical director to contact and stuff like that, but I'm the sole provider at a clinic, and it just got to the point where you try to be as efficient as possible. So first is like get the basics down, get a strong foundation, learn as much as you can, pick everybody's brain, even not just the MDs and PAs that I was working with, but like my X-ray techs, my MAs, the specialists that come through. Like I would ask them and like get their phone numbers and stuff like that. So like if I have like a gnarly hand, laceration, and one of my medical directors jokes about it. He's like, because I had a patient with a laceration like somewhere in the palmar region. He's like, just remember, this is no man's land, right? Low man is okay, but no man, no, don't go. And I was like, okay, that's kind of funny, but I'll never forget that, right? But then there was a laceration like that, and I took a picture, sent it to the hand specialist, and she's like, yep, just clean them up, send them over to me. So just like having that connection and having that, um, like I said, also humility. Like sometimes I'm a little cavalier and like bold and be like, I'm gonna take that hand laceration, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, it looks a little deep, or like, oh, tendon involvement. I'm not touching that. I'm setting you out right now. Like, I don't want to be a hero and mess up somebody's livelihood and hand, right? So that's why, just being able to be humble about it, right? Like I try my best to challenge myself, but at the same time, I also know my limitations as like a new grad and also as a PA. Like I luckily have these specialists to consult with. So yeah, that's what I got to say for new grads, I guess.
That's awesome advice. I appreciate you saying that. I know that a lot of us as students kind of like struggle a little bit with imposter syndrome and thinking that by the time we graduate that we should know everything. So I know I personally really appreciate you saying that and having that perspective.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the opportunity to share that, because that's kind of something I wish I knew too, when I first graduated, because I felt like, oh, I passed the pants, I'm expected to know everything. But no, like you should be asking questions. I feel like if providers, especially new grads, aren't asking PAs, or they feel like they know everything, that's dangerous and arrogant in my opinion. Versus like I came in literally with my notepad and pen, just writing down everything. Even one of the older PAs, like I had my current CMD textbook for like emergency medicine in there just in case, like we had, because we're urgent care too, right? And she's like, "Are you reading? You're such a nerd." And I was like, "Dude, I'm just trying to like, not fuck up, or excuse me, not mess up." And so, just like understanding that. But then she, even though she kind of like bullied me initially, I look up to her as a PA. I'm like, how do I get as efficient and quick as you? How do I like interact with patients as you? And like everybody loves her, even though she was just kind of like a bully to me. But now she's like a big sis to me. So like I ask her questions. I like love working with her. So just really just trying to engage and ask questions. So
Absolutely. And then if you're okay with it, we do have time for one quick question before our next speaker. Did anyone have a question that they wanted to ask while we
sure.
have Aaron here? Karina, go ahead.
Hi, Aaron. First, just want to say thank you so much for speaking with us. Your dad sounds really awesome. We need to have him on a future talk. I just wanted to ask you, because I know I've seen on your Instagram a lot of like volunteer work you do. Like, do you have any advice for people who are new grads, and just in the waiting process after PENS and waiting for credentialing and stuff, we want to volunteer, like any volunteer opportunities that you know of that you really recommend people get involved in?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one right now, especially given like travel restrictions, COVID, and just like resources, the best thing we can do to volunteer right now is just kind of volunteer our time as PAs to like educate and advocate, right? Advocate for our profession, with AAPA, with our state chapters, with Kappa, et cetera. So just trying to figure out ways to give back that way. But in terms of like free clinics and stuff, like you can definitely reach out to your program and be like, hey, since now I'm a PAC, when you guys are having like these student run clinics, I don't mind coming through to, be a preceptor or like just oversee or help out. Like, I feel like that's the best way to learn and all that too. And also give back, right? It was kind of cool to like volunteer, not just at like the free clinics in LA with some of my friends who are not even PAs. I was like one of the only PAs, and this was a cool opportunity to have PA students come shadow too. So that was neat. But like we teamed up with pharmacy students, with medical students and stuff like that locally. So just finding that collaboration. And then obviously like the biggest way to volunteer, I guess, would be like reaching back out to your program and saying like, what can I do to help? Do you guys need me to come through to help teach suturing, like help do a suture workshop? Do you guys want me to come through to, you know, give a guest lecture, whatever it may be, like whether it's first year out or later on, or even with interviews, right? So recently I had the opportunity to make it all full circle, right? Going from interviewing on my program to as a student being like the student ambassador with the interviews to literally being on the other side of the desk and interviewing our potential candidates. So, you know, having those opportunities to volunteer and give back that way is also important, just as equally important. But just, I would say before you get into working and everything, just try to enjoy your time off as best as you can. I started working January 4 of this year. I didn't take my first like vacation or week off until like November. So that, yeah, I know. But you know, the student loans, they're not gonna pay themselves unless Uncle Biden comes through with something.
Thank you so much for your time, Aaron. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, everybody. Phil, I just dropped my Instagram on there. Feel free to ask any questions or whatever, or you know, if you have any other opportunities to network or give talks and stuff like that, I'd love to help out as best as I can. But I hope everybody stays safe, and best of luck to the soon-to-be PACs out there on the pants. Just keep working and grinding. Like it's all gonna pay off, you know. So just hang in there. And to all the OG PAs out there, thank you for what y'all did to help lead this career or profession into what it is. So we appreciate your sacrifice and everything, and you know, trailblazing for us. So
Thank you.
Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer and Chief Research Officer at PAEA. Dr. Miles seeks to promote solutions for creating inclusive educational environments for underrepresented students and faculty. Dr. Miles has received her PhD in Curriculum and Instruction in the Science of Learning from the University at Buffalo in 2017. Dr. Miles went on to Vanderbilt University, a part of the nationally competitive Academic Pathways Fellowship, where she completed nearly 3 years as a postdoctoral researcher for diversity in STEM higher education. Dr. Miles's research focuses on the role of identity, racialized experiences, and marginalization in K through 12 and higher education STEM and health profession environments. Dr. Miles has over 25 publications where she and her colleagues have critically examined educational spaces across the pipeline. Today, she will share with us some of her preliminary findings from the PAEA research team. And the title of her talk is Snowflake on the Iceberg, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives Across PA Programs. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Miles.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? All right, thumbs up. Awesome, awesome. I first like to say I'm so happy to be here today. I'm going to share some data with you that is literally hot off the press. And one thing that I admire about this group in particular is you guys are really causing associations and programs to question what it is that they're doing. Do not let the pressure up, right? So I'm gonna have some data that backs that up, right? So when I say keep it coming, right? We can't let them breathe, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and share my slides. As I'm doing that, I'm just gonna drop something in the chat because I'm gonna go to a slide. Go ahead and click that link and put which indigenous land are you occupying, right? So I'm on the land of the Haudenosaunee, and I just want to give a special shout out to the Tuscaroras, right? Because they have historical and contemporary issues, right? So they still do not have clean drinking water on the reservation. They also had their land that not only was a part of their reservation, but land that they purchased taken away from them for the Power Authority. So let's just acknowledge the fact that they're here. They have issues today, right? So these are living, breathing people. We have histories of just the boarding schools, which is traumatic. If you want a little bit of what that is, watch Indian Horse on Netflix. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. And my desktop is always a mess, so you might see all my business. Don't judge me. Okay. Do you guys see my slide, my presentation slide? All right. So why did I title it Snowflake on the Iceberg? We always talk about the tip of the iceberg. I'm like, no, baby, we looking at one snowflake, right? And I want you to know that there is so much work that needs to be done that it needs to be all hands on deck. Everybody is going to have a station on this underground railroad of trying to inform to transform educational spaces, right? So nobody gets to take a break because they've taken a break for I mean, we can just start with the beginning, right? So they've never had to think fully about inclusion, right? So again, just keep dropping whose land, acknowledging, right? So I'm going to keep going. I want to acknowledge the PAEA research team. We are a team of color. Rania, the only reason we don't have a picture of her today because she doesn't start till January 10th. This will be our first DEI coordinator. And I wouldn't have the work that I do today without acknowledging the team that I'm really representing, right? So there is no one person show in this work. They're all dope individuals, right? And one thing I want to push back on, you do not have to have a PhD or even a degree to do research. You don't have to have those things to even publish. Right. But academia will tell us these things. Right. So if anybody leaves this space and they're like, yo, I want to do a little bit more or learn a little bit more about research, reach out to me. I'm going to share my email. I have worked with everything from school teachers to kids with publishing, and I have no problem throwing people on papers. Okay. So you will, and I always got a paper in the pipe. I said by this year, I'm going to get to 30. All right. Anyway, so the two things that I'm going to share is I'm going to share with you the most recent PAEA data. I've already shared with Alexandria the best practices and DEI toolkit. Those are behind our member wall, but I shared them with her so she can disseminate, share that. That is our most widely downloaded resource that programs should be using if they have nothing, right? Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect. That doesn't mean we don't have further work to do. That means where are we at with this right here, right? So use it to arm yourselves, right? One of the things I had to learn, especially being a minoritized woman, a Black woman in these educational spaces, I had to know handbooks in and out. I could tell people what page it's on. I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, I have yet to read. Where did that appear? So just know that it is okay to do that, and that is us responding to being minoritized people, right? So the last thing I want to do is urge students to leverage their positioning to increase awareness of DEI strategies for the program. Like basically, do not let the fire up, right? The DEI toolkit is really, so there's two documents, right? We knew it was the most downloaded resource, but we also didn't know how people were using it. So we were like, we need to collect some data on this. So this is a national data set I'm going to share with you. So the DEI toolkit talks about setting goals, creating benchmarks. The best practices I kind of think of as like the meat and potatoes, right? So how might that appear or show up in admissions, right? People always talk about they have these holistic admissions processes, but at the same time, if you're not pushing back and thinking through how race and racism has operated, you're just going to reify the same racist outcomes, which you've done. And that's what we're seeing, right? So I'm going to start there. So I'm going to dive right into the data and hopefully leave some time for y'all to ask me some questions. That this was developed in partnership with the Research Mission Advancement Commission, which we call the RMAC, right? So the DIMAC was very influential in developing the best practices toolkit and the DEI toolkit, and the RMAC was the one that helped us come up with, okay, how are we going to see? So how are we going to research answering some of these questions in partnership with the PAEA research team? And if I'm going too fast, just somebody slow me down. We get excited about these things and the spirit just be moving. All right. So the survey was conducted and we kind of tagged it onto our rapid response the rapid response surveys were to let us know what was going on with programs during COVID. But at the same time, we have this national uprising where everybody's woke now. We have your attention. Right. So it gave us good entry into, well, let's ask now about DEI. Right. And so it was just over this summer. So it was only open for 1 month. We had 162 programs respond. Right. And so that's about 60%. So 58% response rates of all our members. So is this every single program? I mean, your program, I'm like, well, I didn't take the survey or whatever it is. Right. And that's fine. But at the end of the day, we have enough data to say this is kind of the gist of what we're seeing. All right. I don't think people are going to be too surprised, but some of the things that I want to point out is, so when we ask programs, right? So remember 162 programs. Does your program have a DEI goal? Yeah, 72%. I'm going to drop it down to the bottom. They're working towards continuous improvement in their DEI efforts. Program director said, yes, we're doing that, right? 67%. Implement strategies and tactics to support DEI goals. Uh-oh, we're starting to see a drop. Well, okay, now we're saying measures the effectiveness of strategies taken to address DEI goals, right? So that means, okay, well, you have goals, but you don't even know if they're effective or not, right? So they just doing busy work. I call that all that busy work. Now, we say, well, do you readjust DEI goals at critical milestones? We ain't doing that. We're not doing that, right? And so, you only have 18% of programs saying that they do that. You see, the more intense and the more strategic this gets, and you can literally take the DEI toolkit and it maps right onto what they say, right? So if you're like, has DEI goals, if you're like, what does that mean? Go to the toolkit and follow that along. So that's how we made it. We wrote it, the survey in that way, so that programs can then go back and double check, what did that mean? So then we said, well, let's just break this up a little bit. Okay, is it who's responding here, right? So we said we had 117 private institutions and 42 public. When it overall, public institutions were more likely to have more commitments as it relates to DEI. Does that mean there were leaps and bounds ahead? No, that doesn't mean that, right? That means there's a bit of an uptick, just so that we're kind of seeing that, and they're the lighter green, right? So when it says we're working towards improvement in their DEI efforts, well, there's a difference of 74% versus 65, right? So it's significant, but it's not like, oh, well, they just got it together. So I don't want you to think that. Then we looked at, well, what are so DEI best practices. This is the best practices document that Alexandra is going to share with you, right? So we said, does your institution support to has institutional support to promote diversity efforts within your program? 70% of the programs say, yeah, we got that. Then when it comes down to incorporates diversity into the curricula by defining culturally diverse perspective as it relates to diverse outcomes, they're like, yeah, we do that, 66%. Makes appropriate changes to better support students and faculty's experience. 63% of the programs say they do this. Now, remember, this is program directors' perceptions of what they do. This is not taking into account students. This is not taking into account faculty. So we could find, if we were to continue with this work, there could be a difference of opinion. Has access to resources to promote diversity efforts within their program. 50% of the programs say, yeah, we have that. Right. So remember, this is 162 programs. Has working definitions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does that mean in our program? Fifth, again, it drops. This is something you could go back to your program and say, I'm sorry, what do you mean by diversity? Have we defined that? I'm sorry, I'm struggling with what does that look like? Can you point me to where that is? And again, now when it comes to the public institutions are again a bit ahead, especially when it comes to has a working definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So there was a bigger gap. So the private institutions, if you're a minoritized person, you might want to ask some additional questions if you're considering of what might be a good placement for you. Now, here's where some of the rubber meets the road. DEI best practices. Now, this is what our group came up with. This is out of research. So here are some best practices, but this is where programs have the lowest level of engagement. Engages in mentorship networks to strengthen and support a diverse PA program. 19 or 20% of the programs said they have that, right? So again, remember, this is 162 programs. Places value on cognitive diversity in the recruitment efforts. Again, it's dropping. So that means they could be privileging things like your GRE scores and your GPA, where if you're thinking about the cognitive diversity, you might be thinking about cultural and linguistic differences and, backgrounds and so on and so forth, which would make a more diverse student population, right? sets aside time to learn about updated laws or policies that may affect how the strategize how to strategize to fulfill the mission and statement. Right? We know laws and policies change. People have to. There has to be somebody familiarizing themselves with what is the policy on this. Is this a policy violation, or is this just a this didn't feel good? Right? So when I say learn your policies, that's a tip or a trick you take any workspace, because then you'll know if this is a clear violation or if this is this doesn't feel good. This is a cultural climate issue, right? Has time released. Now, again, remember, we're dropping. The more we ask of programs, the less they're doing. Has time allotted to promote diversity efforts within programs? So if you only have 14% of the program saying that they are dedicating time, then guess what that means? You really ain't doing nothing, right? So sit with that, right? Then I mean, you gotta, the revolution needs resources. I mean, folks of color have been doing what we can on shoestrings or free or for the free with what we, we doing what we can, what we got. However, institutions have resources, has a dedicated budget to promote diversity efforts within the program, right? So that means they have a line in the budget, 4%. Well, we could say 5 if we want to be generous, right? 5% of the respondents said they had that, right? So let this keep sitting with you. Now, I'm just going to kind of, for the sake of time, I already kind of hit on this point. I could share these slides also, so that if you need to reference them, but I want to kind of slide on to, we also asked, so we did the survey part, but we also asked, because we have Nikki, who's our mixed methods analyst. We said, look, let's start throwing some qual questions in here. Let's start analyzing, what do they say when we give them open text responses? So here is our analyze. So we analyze their response to basically what facilitated the advancement of DEI goals, right? So there were some things that they said were barriers, but I'm not going to focus on the barriers, because I think the most powerful thing for your group to realize is that you are coming through on national surveys, right? This is going to be a report that you could cite, right? So the first thing is DEI officer or a leader at a program. So that means they have a dedicated person. So 48%. So of these responses, let me take one step back. So of those 162 programs, we had 122 programs respond to qualitative responses. So that was over 73% of programs. They wanted to say something else. Right. And so in these descriptions, they describe, we came in open. We didn't say, here's our code book. We stepped back and we let the data talk to us. So that's why it makes it even more powerful. They said, having a dedicated DEI officer or a leader at the program or institution really helps move these things along, because then somebody's watching, somebody's making sure the needle is moving, somebody's holding folks accountable, right? So if your program doesn't have that, that may be something you want to rally around and start beating on the desk. The second thing is institutional support. Well, that kind of goes along with, well, if you have institutional support, you're more likely to have a DEI officer, right? Or somebody who's in charge, right? So you can see how these things are coming together. Now, I believe the 3 and 4 are you all. Increased awareness and social pressure, number 3. Student feedback and involvement in initiatives, right? And I want to just say really quickly, you see how ARC PA is towards the bottom and we're at the very last. They like, well, PA, yeah, we like your resources, but it's really these social pressures, right? So you have the institutional responses, you have the social pressures, and students. I really think, and we know that historically all social movements were led by young people, right? Some students, right? So when we're talking civil rights, those are young people, those are college students, right? And so just remembering that, and don't lose that, you are empowered. So going on to the next one, saying that they had DEI focused curriculum and a mission that explicitly talked about DEI. They said that was really important to have. And then they had where they said, well, if we had DEI goals and we had strategies for implementation, well, that was really good to have those things, right? And they should go together, right? You shouldn't have goals and not know how to get there. How do you know if you're effective, right? Here was another thing. They said DEI conscious admissions processes. What I want us to kind of push back against is assuming that holistic means DEI conscious or racially conscious, or, you know, because we know what critical race theory tells us is that racism has a way of reifying itself, and our job is to figure out what does it look like next. Right. So what racism and oppression looks like today doesn't always readily match what it looked like 100 years ago or 50 years ago. Right. And that's another thing. It's normalized. Right. So it looks normal to the mainstream dominant groups. And it's the minoritized people that are like, wait, hold on, wait a minute. This is wrong, right? This is really wrong. And then I want to say the ARC standard, right? That is something that you all can say, well, hold on, that's on their website. That's not hidden information. Right. So you could say, well, our PA says we're supposed to be doing this. What does it look like? I'm confused. Show us what it looks like, because I can't make these connections. Right. And so people may talk in riddles and rhymes, and they could talk about like they're doing these things. But sometimes what we find when we pull back the cloak is that they may not have much strategy. Right. Sorry. Sorry, my last. I'm getting it together. But then also underrepresented faculty actively engaged in DEI initiatives. And this one I want to caution you on too, right? So that doesn't mean that underrepresented faculty are not embedded in these processes along the way. The problem becomes that you have the cultural tax and the Black tax, and I mean, you can go on from there, that, you know, underrepresented faculty are spearheading and single-handedly doing these things in addition to their workloads, and oftentimes not getting recognition, not getting compensation. And, you know, it can really take a toll on those individuals. And then they're at the end, they said, thank you for your toolkit, PAEA. Y'all been great, right? So we're not at the top of the list. So what does that mean for students? And I'm going to wrap it up. And so hopefully you have some time to ask me some questions. So then what does that mean for students? Again, the biggest social movements are led by or have been or heavily involved students. Why? Because y'all don't care. Y'all don't care. This is your policy. It ain't mine. It doesn't feel good. I don't like this. This is not right. You go fix your policy, because whoever created it can recreate it. Right. So you recognize that policies are put in place by people. So that means a person can go back and change it. Right. We're not talking about the boogeyman. The next thing is respond to the needs of marginalized people, right? And I'm going to talk about what that 10% means. Why do you want to respond to the needs of the most marginalized and highlight the issues of the most marginalized? Because it's what they're experiencing is normalized. And if you see it, call it out, right? Because it looks obvious to you, thinking about that Matrix film, right? Which pill are you going to take, the red pill or the blue pill? It looks obvious to you. What I have found doing this work for the years I've been doing it, it is not obvious. You have to sometimes back it up and, you know, spell it out in such a concrete example, unfortunately, right? But this is where I want you to know it only takes 10%. What business literature has taught us is that stop trying to convince everybody to rock with you and to work with you. In any space, if you want to change the culture, it only takes 10%. Don't spend your energy on the people that are so far removed from you and your thinking, right? So thinking about that bell curve, they so far on the other side, don't waste your time on them. Focus on that middle group, because it's a larger group that literally don't know what to do and don't know what they're seeing. Don't waste your energy on convincing those left-wing people, right? Determine where you want to start, right? So where are you at? Where do you want to start? And I think that's the one of the biggest things I've had to learn, right? So, and being a part of a community, right? So whether that be, which I highly recommend, being involved in your local communities, right? Being knowledgeable of those issues, because you can show up as citizens, right? You can show up at school board meetings. You can show up at city council meetings. Exercise your civic rights, because oftentimes we just assume people are gonna do right. And what do we know? They do not. So hold these folks accountable, right? Be knowledgeable in a focus area and show up for others. So what does that mean? So determine where you want to start. Doesn't mean you have to be an expert in police reform, right? You can say, well, police reform isn't really my issue, but I show up. And I listen to those that this is their station. And I ask them, how can I help, or how can I be engaged, right? And I always say this, develop some kind of strategy for yourself or with your peers, right? So sometimes you need to follow the policy. This is one of the things that students can often get frustrated by, or young people also, just period, right? Because they're like, is there a policy for this? Or they're like, I don't care what the policy is. I'm just mad and somebody's going to hear me out. Sometimes what happens is the message doesn't get to the appropriate person that can actually just make the change. And sometimes it's just that simple. Like, no, who's responsible for this? Who do I need to speak to about this issue? And then, okay, well, I'm gonna go have this conversation with them. Sometimes you could be having a conversation with, let's say, a faculty member, but they're not put in a position to actually change the policy. Well, who's voting on these policies? Who, where's this happening? Right. And then other times you just need to turn the table over. Right. And so that's the discernment. When do you need to follow a policy and when do you need to turn a table over? And then lastly, identify and celebrate your successes. So, and that's hard, right? Because you're like, you can get overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I mean, all of these injustices in the world. And yes, it's heavy. However, find small wins, find ways to celebrate and enjoy those that are on the struggle with you, and fill your cup. So sometimes, I might listen to, if I'm writing a paper and I'm like, okay, I got to get this out and I got to get it just right. I might listen to trap music to fill my cup that day. Because I'm about to go in on this paper. Or it may be, let me hang out with my homegirls, right? Or whatever it is. Or let me talk through this in these various ways, right? It could be, let me talk to my therapist about this, make sure I ain't crazy, right? Whatever it is you need to do to fill your cup, that is just as important as you learning to do what you need to do to be a part of this movement. And if you're aware of these issues and you do not act, you're complicit. There is no middle of the road. You're in or you're out, right? And so, and I would just say that, right? And so not everybody needs to be on the, at the protest holding a sign, right? Because at one point in my life, that's where it was, where, I would carry around signs in my car and my daughter would be like, oh, we guess we going to the protest. I have blank ones just in case. It didn't say what I needed it to say that day, right? So not everybody needs to be at the protest, but figuring out what your station is. And I'm going to stop there. And if you have any questions for me, I don't know if there's time for questions, but I, again, appreciate just the opportunity to share some of this national data with you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miles. That was amazing. I think I can speak for everyone here, just saying that you just reinvigorated us today, and it was what we needed. Just feeling validated in a lot of the work that we've been doing, and knowing that our voices are being heard. So I wanted to open it up to see if anybody has a few questions before we take a break and head to our next speaker. Looks like Karina has a question.
I always have a question. Dr. Miles, just thank you so much for speaking. I loved your energy and everything you had to say. You kind of inspired me now, because I don't know if everyone on this call received it, but I do remember getting an email not too long ago for my program from PAEA about a 30-minute survey. So I don't know if you want to just talk about that, or if maybe people haven't received it from their program, maybe there's a way that they can still access it and fill out the survey if they're students. And I guess that was more of a comment, but my question is, I don't know if you can speak on behalf of PAE, maybe just as yourself, but has there been any research into looking at the racial implications of the GRE and the PA CAP being implemented as a way to have students accepted into programs?
So right now, our research team isn't really looking into that, although we know it is something that we should do a national audit on, right? And one of the things that's stepping into this role, it's like, which issue, where do you start, right? So I would say there is research on it. I don't have those articles ready to roll, but we do have a senior director of admissions, Dr. Donna Murray, who is very knowledgeable and is with PAEA. And so she's our admissions guru. So I would definitely encourage you to reach out to her. But what I would say is we already know, and the data has already come out, that the GRE don't predict how you're going to do in grad school. However, we want to keep researching something that we know this already. This goes right along with, when they had those intelligence tests, all it does is reproduce racist outcomes. We actually don't need another study. What we need to say is, why are you doing, like, you need to stop this policy, right? You need to stop this practice. It is not predictive of if somebody's going to be successful within the program. But what do? We reify that, exclusive. That's one way to exclude and say it's policy, right? When it comes to the PCAS and things like that, my thing is, again, I don't even know if there's research. I mean, there might be some research on it. I'm not sure that the research really, again, can you really take a test at the beginning and to determine if you're going to be successful, right? And then what is then the responsibility of the institution and program to then support those along the way, right? So I would say that to your first part of your question. The second part of your question is student data. If your program is not sending out the survey, that's probably a red flag, because that is the national data set. And we've also added some additional questions in there that lets us get to the root of, and we've added some more DEI stuff. So we really try to look at each instrument at a time. So we're getting ready to launch our incoming, right? So students that are getting ready to matriculate. So there's two places in which you should have took the surveys, one in the beginning, but within your first 3 months, and then right there towards the end. So we have the beginning and we have the end. In the end, we're starting to add questions about, the climate, right? What was it like for you? And then we can see if you're a minoritized person or not. We can say, ooh, a lot of the minoritized people are saying the environments is this, because what happens when we look at climate data, if you're only looking at the majority, which are white women, and they're like, oh, everything's good. You're like, wow, our environment is over. Oh, this is great. We don't have anything else to do. But if you don't disaggregate and look at minoritized individuals, you ain't really looked at your climate data, because you have to look at the most marginalized in that space to really get your litmus of how things are really going, right? So the first one would be, oh God, what is it? The matriculating student survey. And then the last one will be the end of program survey. Perfect. There we go. End of program. And if you have any additional questions, I know my time is up. If you have any additional questions about those surveys, if you're interested in research or you want to hear more about it, I'll drop my email. But also Alexandria has my stuff. She knows I try to be as responsive as possible. But really, you all are the revolution. Right? So you all are the change. You ain't waiting for change, you're doing it. Like change ain't, we always think about, oh, change is gonna come. No, change is now. So just remember that the change is now, whether they're comfortable with it or not. Do not let the heat up. Keep inviting people to these circles, right? Keep inviting, because you all are really transforming what the landscape of PAs could look like, right? And we can start to see more minoritized PAs, and we could start to see more culturally responsive, right? And culturally considerate PAs on the outside. So that's all. I don't know if you was that. I think that's my time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, Dr. Miles. I believe we'll be heading to a break. And again, as she mentioned, if anybody has further questions, please feel free to add them in the chat and hopefully we'll be able to address them. Thank you so much.
Dr. Jackie is one of the 1.8% of PAs who have their doctorate, and that's not where her accomplishments stop. She is an amazing example of hard work and perseverance as she completed PA school while being a mom and a businesswoman. In September of 2021, she was the epitome of representation matters as she was crowned International Mrs. USA. She does it all, y'all. Please welcome my mentor and PA role model, Dr. Jacqueline Edwards, DMSC PAC.
Oh, ladies, that was so cute. So, y'all, I am super, super honored and am glad that y'all asked me to participate in today's discussion. And I just want to give a disclaimer. I am like a straight no chaser type PA. And I was glad to catch part of Dr. Miles, so then I didn't feel a certain way, because I was like, listen, I know people be coming with the data, the statistics, and they're gonna have all these nice little pretty charts, but I'm just here to keep it real with y'all, because at the end of the day, matters of social justice and matters of race. You're dealing with real life people, and we don't need to see, like Dr. Miles said, we don't need to see another study. We don't need to see some more numbers. That is there. I know. I mean, like I can tell y'all, like I have not experienced any racism or any misogynist type of views and expectations, or what I want to call it, like almost the effects of poverty. Like I have not been removed from any of that just because I am a PA. So I did put together a little presentation. That's more so because I'm tangential and I like to go off on, I'll be talking about this and talking about that. And this is just going to kind of guide me and keep me going in the right direction. There, of course, will be time for an opportunity for questions, but let me see if I can pull this up, y'all, because I know I look young, but I'm kind of like y'all auntie, and I'll be having technological issues sometimes. So let's see here. Bam, y'all, look, God will do it. Let's see so I have like this new obsession with Canva too. So I never put anything like on PowerPoint. Everything I create is in Canva. Let me see if I can get it. Present. Oh, I see. Hold on. Bam. There we go. So I wanted to take on the digital accountability because we are in a digital time. This new generation, which I actively participate in, we have social media, we have the internet, and a lot of the racial or social injustice issues that may come up, or when you're talking about diversity and inclusion that come up, some of us only get to see it on social media, especially if you're in PA school and you study and you don't got time to be like actually watching the real news. So this is what we're gonna go with. So I first have to let y'all know I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I am not sharing opinions that are representative of any professional organization, previous or current employer, because listen, your girl still needs to get paid because still got bills and student loans. So, and nobody's paying me to do this. So like Liz introduced, just a little bit about me. For all of you who have not ever seen me, heard of me, or just don't know who I am Dr. Jackie Edwards. I have been working in healthcare for over 20 years. So ever since I was 18 and I graduated high school, I have worked in healthcare. I started out as a nursing assistant. I became a registered nurse. And then for the past 10 and a half years, I've been working as a PA. And I graduated nursing school from Carnegie University in Milwaukee. I graduated PA school from Marquette University in 2011 in Milwaukee. And then this summer, I just graduated my doctorate in medical science degree from A.T. Still University out in Hunro, Arizona. I do live in Wisconsin. I am part of the less than 1% of Black PAs in the entire state of Wisconsin. That is a number, that is some data that I've actually pulled up. I think if you look on either the NCCPA or the AAPA, whoever put the numbers out, those are the numbers here. And just interesting fact, from Marquette University, I was Black person number 5. And the reason I know I was Black person number 5 is because we always had these class photos and I was in the 10th class and I could count where I was. I have worked in a variety of specialties, and I think it's important to note people just don't assume that I first of all, I'm the PA, that I'm going to be the one making a lot of these decisions, or that I work in certain specialties. So I started out in neurosurgery. That was my very, very first job as a PA. I have worked in the emergency department, urology, which is very interesting, urgent care, and for the past few years, I have been in occupational medicine. Oh, and then, there's me, my doctorate degree. If you've never been on my visit JackiePA.com, just a slight plug there, PA merch and apparel. And then I was crowned International Mrs. USA this summer. So I wanted to be more of a conversation, but I wanted to have a flow. So I have a couple of cases that I wanted to bring up. I wanted to talk about microaggressions, how we responded to social media posts. What are your responsibilities, and just get into more why it's important to think about what you're posting before you're posting. just a cute quote. It's not our differences that divide us, it's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. And recognize, I think, is key, because a lot of the times people think that they are exempt from some of these responsibilities, and that's because they don't even recognize it's an issue for an entire different group. And I like to include this state of being diverse, because a lot of times when we're talking about racial and social justice, people kind of only focus on the racial component of it, which is a very big part. But we're talking about people who are from different social and ethnic backgrounds, different gender, sexual orientation, because if you are part of a marginalized group, you are considered diverse, and you can definitely be on the front end of some of the issues that have come up, especially in the past couple of years. And being a PA student does not make you exempt from any of that. So I have to move something on my screen, y'all, so forgive me. I hope I don't close something. It's just I can't see. Oh, dang nabbit. I can't move this box. Oh, there we go. All right, told y'all I'm the auntie. So this first case, because when you're in PA school, they always give you cases, and we like cases because it makes us feel like we learned something. But in this past summer, some of you may have been aware, some of you may not. It depends on how much you've been on social media. And I'm doing my best to protect the identity of this person, because the point is, I'm not trying to give that person any but that's not the focus. That part of it is the focus, but it's the action conducted by this person. And I want to talk about how this particular case was an issue. So this past summer, it's a white passing practicing PA made a social media post. It is important to include that they were white passing, because had anybody else just took a look at this particular person, they would not assume that they identify with any ethnic minority group. But that does not make you exempt from the things that you're going to be doing in social media. And this is safe to say this person could identify as a healthcare influencer, meaning they had a whole bunch of followers. They were always posting, making reels, TikToks, everything. So they had a lot of followers. And when you have a lot of followers, you're considered an influencer, and you just never quite know the message that you're sending and to whom you're sending this message. So, and sure, I'm trying my best to describe it. Basically, this person made, I can't remember if it was a reel or a TikTok, y'all, because the account is now gone. But for me, I believe that reels and TikToks take a lot more time to make, because it's not like taking a poster, posting a picture, posting it, and then it's done. Usually with a reel or a TikTok, you gotta put all this stuff together, put the words, hit your time in. And so if you created something, you had to put some time and some thought into it. So this particular post was like a dance and video post, and talking about my patients call me with, my patients have STD results, need medication refills, have high blood pressure. It's talking about sensitive medical conditions, and it was not a HIPAA violation, so it did not include identifying the patients, but it was just talking about and I can't get this information to them because their phones turned off, or they were no call, no show, and it was making a joke of it, and it was really in poor taste. So the video gets posted, it's going around, people are they're basically pissed, because I know I was pissed when I saw it. Can I say that on this list? What's up, Professor? But they put this out there, and it was offensive to underserved communities, minorities that work in healthcare, people who came from underserved communities. I was offended because I was like, dang, this could have been me. That I grew up and we didn't have our house phone on all the time. This is before cell phones, y'all. But there may be a reason why somebody didn't have their phone on, or there may be a reason why somebody did not come in for their appointment. It wasn't because they didn't want to. Now, this person worked in an underserved community, and I believe they were a recipient of that NHAC scholarship. So this is why this was in a horrible move on this person. So this PA ends up giving an apology, and it was the most insincere apology. It was more like, well, since y'all saying something, I'm going to bring it up. But I could never, like, I mean the best for my patients, because I identify with this other minority group, and it's not that I care about my patients. So people are reporting, and you always remember, when you put it out there into the digital universe, it is out there. It's not as simple as I deleted, because there were screenshots, people were sharing it. I mean, I made a video, I was on vacation. I was like, let me tell you what was wrong with this video. And what ended up happening was this person deleted their page. Word on the street was they got let go from their job. I can neither confirm nor deny. That wasn't none of my business. But the issue, there are quite a few points why this is problematic. Oh, let's see if I can get that. So what was wrong here? First of all, the content was made and posted. There were many moments to pause and ask, was this even necessary to post? And with the newer generation, y'all gotta be careful out here, because people love doing things for clout. People do anything for likes out here and followers. And it's for what? Like, you can post something and ruin your career or ruin your brand for an extended period of time. The information was insensitive and inaccurate. So not only was it offensive to the population that was served, but it was offensive to other people who could identify with that population, people who saw this particular person and was like, hey, that I looked up to you, so I'm offended that you even thought this was cool to produce into a dang reel or TikTok. I wish I could remember what it was. There was a lack of remorse, because this person did not feel like they did anything that was really wrong. Like, I don't think they really connected with the problem in that video. And it was highly unprofessional. And don't get me wrong, if you go down my Instagram, I mean, I think I even recently posted a couple videos, but I definitely include a disclaimer. It is a generalization. It's not for marginalized groups, it's for across the board. Because I don't know if y'all been dealing with rude patients as students, but anybody practicing right now in the past couple of years, people have lost their minds. But it's still, you have to always consider like certain factors, okay? So they forgot everybody they represented when they posted this video. And I know for me, I remember when I made my video, I was mad. Like, I was super mad because I followed this person. So I immediately unfollowed, because I like unfollow things that do not serve me, or are not, that aren't in line with what I believe. But my issue was that, wow, you made this video in poor taste just to get likes. You thought it was funny. You thought it was cute. You edited it. You added some color onto it. And it was talking about people in their situation. Like, we forget that, why could you not get in contact with this person? Maybe they had to, work a double shift and they couldn't come into work. They couldn't come into their appointment because them missing 4 hours of work to, make it to an appointment is a significant chunk of their income. Or maybe their phone is off because, of all the bills that they need to pay. That one's not a priority. Or maybe they have other medical conditions and they're trying to decide which ones they're going to pay attention to. It was just a horrible video, y'all. And I go into more stuff about it because I've been having lots of thoughts of what we be doing on social media and what can we do. So, like, let's talk about these Black squares for solidarity, y'all. So there are some people that are considered influencers that I have stopped following in my same profession, because I feel like it's not my job to like educate on a deeper degree. When we are in 2021, everything online is available to people. But y'all remember when we had those Black squares on Instagram now, and everybody and their mom and their cousin, everybody, Black, white, orange, in between, they decided we're gonna put up this Black square. These are the same people who may have been quiet on the issues at hand, but they decided we're gonna do a Black square because I don't want to lose my Black followers. I don't want to use lose my followers that are allies to the Black community. And I want to show that I also am for the movement. So I'm gonna tell you, this is what I saw. I just saw people who weren't, Black or part of a minority group or didn't feel compelled. They just decided, you know what, I need to keep my aesthetic intact. So we're not going to ever talk about any of these systemic and systematic issues that are going on and that are also trickling into our communities, because a lot of those influencers are also the same people charging PA students hundreds of dollars to, like, you know, do edits or don't get me started. Let me digress. But what we didn't see was true allyship, consistency, and action. It just opened up like this little box where people could say like, hey, I stood up, I put this, you saw my post? You saw my post? I had my black square. And that was all you saw, because, you know, we didn't want to mess up the color flow. We didn't want to mess up, you know, people felt like they were blurring lines. And kind of like Dr. Miles said, ain't no in between, y'all. When you are, if you're going to be an ally or you're going to speak up and speak out, you need to do it all the way. Don't half do it, because we see that. And I know for me personally and professionally, I mean, I put a little bit of distance in, because you're showing me where your priorities lie. So yeah, when we're on social media and I'm gonna kind of back up. Let me see if I can do this on my, I'll just pause that. But like when we're on social media, we have to always remember that social issues, social injustice, racial issues, racial injustice, if you think that they don't impact you, they do. And if you think that they're not an issue and that another group is just being highly sensitive, you probably, in my opinion, should not be working in healthcare, because how are you going to appropriately take care of those people that are experiencing it? Like a patient comes in and complains of like, okay, I'm having increased stomach aches or increased headaches, when it's really stress from the anxiety and post-traumatic trauma of dealing with their everyday work life, or maybe somebody got pulled over by the police and it just was not what they, you know, it wasn't a simple pull over. I mean, like, it's just, I feel like there's such this overlap in this responsibility that we have when we're on social media. Like, first of all, stop doing everything for likes, y'all. Everything is not, it's not that serious. I've literally had people who were like new PAs reach out to me like, how can I grow my following? I'm gonna go into that. I'm gonna tell you how y'all can grow your following. It's not by doing stuff that's just in poor taste. Let's talk about microaggressions, because sometimes people be thinking like, if you are racist, right, it's, you had to have on a Ku Klux Klan mask and stuff. That's the kind of racism, or it's this loud, blatant. But I'm like, there's some stuff they're just microaggressions. And they can vary from like everyday rudeness to slanderous acts that you communicate to members of minority groups. And basically you're just degrading this group of people. And they can seem harmless, but they can inflict feelings of shame and degradation on whoever is taking it on. And I think I put my slides out of order, y'all. We're gonna see. Oh yeah, I did. Let me tell you, I made this PowerPoint while I was at work, and sometimes y'all forgive me. But so we have micro assaults, we have micro insults, and micro invalidations. I guess the best way I have it in quotes how we can define those. So discriminatory verbal abuse, insensitive and disparaging comments. And the last one I like to call gaslighting. I know they put that in there, but that's just basically like, that's not what's going on. I'm gonna have to go back to the other screen. So some examples that people may not even notice that can be taken the wrong, I can't say it's not taken the wrong way. You may be saying it and not even think about how this comes out, or you may make a post and you thought this meme was funny, but it was just like, you get tied to every single thing you post. So you speak English very well to somebody who is not from this country, or like maybe a first generation, or you just assume they couldn't speak English because of how they look. Like, I'm just gonna assume you speak Spanish when you, like, that's considered a microaggression, is disrespectful. Asking a PA student, a doctor, are you the nurse? Or being on a phone or something and like, oh yeah, the nurse is in here, especially after I just told you who I was. That's also considered a microaggression, because what you're saying is, I shouldn't be in this position. I only can be the nurse, okay? Well, your people must be so proud of you. And I want to tell y'all that, like, since I've been a nurse through being a PA, I've gotten that one all the time. Like, oh my gosh, like, where did you go to school? did you go to this area technical college? And then, you know, I'm like in conversation, no, I went to Marquette. Oh, your parents must be so proud of you. And I know they don't say that to everybody else because I have never heard anybody else tell me that. And some of the assumptions that you state out loud, like when you say that them people or they always, when you do that, that can be viewed negatively. Saying all lives matter in response to somebody saying Black Lives Matter, using someone's incorrect pronouns, especially when they told you or is written and available for you to see, like you consistently do that. That's just basically saying that's exhibiting a superiority complex and making it seem like this group is less than. So that's where you really got to check your biases, because we forget that if these things are in us, they come out. We all have biases, but they can come out. Hold on, let me see if I can back up. Oh, I did. Okay, y'all. So I think it's just important also to talk about cancel culture, but anytime we're talking about social media and digital media, digital responsibility, when it comes to this, like people define cancel culture differently, but it's just like this mass canceling or expressing disapproval and exerting like social pressure. And when you put stuff out there, am I a believer in cancel culture? I'm a believer in consequences for your actions and however that may come up. So it's kind of like how, you know, karma doesn't always come back to you, how you delivered it. That's the same way. If you put something out on social media and it is harmful to or disparaging a particular group, I mean, if you get the pressure from everybody on social media and you feel like you've been canceled, you have to like take a step back and analyze what did you do wrong to contribute to that. And in very small instances, may it not be necessary or warranted, but who are we to say how everybody else is going to respond, which is why you need to be responsible with what you're putting out there. Like I'm big on speaking your truth, saying what, you know, speaking up for what matters for you, defending people who cannot defend themselves, advocacy. I'm big on that. And I think you should be able to do that. Now, there's going to be people who are going to be offended, but they're just like, they don't have any social responsibility. So that's acting in a manner that benefits society. And I believe as healthcare practitioners, as people, as good humans, we have a social responsibility to put out information that is true, accurate, and not disparaging marginalized groups. Okay, let's see where we're at now. Okay, your role digitally, because then some people may be like, well, what am I supposed to do? I think we have to be, first of all, our job is to educate, inform, teach about whatever fuels you. So I don't care if you are teaching about cooking. Everybody does not have to be a PA influencer, nurse influencer. Like that's not what everybody's called to do. You want to educate and inform. And when it comes to matters of social and racial justice, I believe that we have to put out information and let people know, like, especially if you're dealing with something, I like to let people know, like, listen, this person called me this, and this is what I did, these are steps I took, and this is why this is wrong. Entertain. I'm all for the funny memes, dance, and skits, but you have to be careful that what you're putting out there is not bad for you as a person, as a brand, and for your profession, and as a human. Just are you being a good human? It's an excellent way to connect, and so you want to treat this as your first impression. So imagine you're an influencer, like the person I talked about before, and the very first time somebody, you know, they're very interested in the career, and they look at you and they come to you and they see your page, and all of a sudden you just talk about they cousins situation or their own personal situation. That is turning people away from the profession, in my opinion, or just not. It's creating this scenario where we're not trusting. And then digitally, you need to it have to be respectful. Not everybody's not going to do that, and we can't be responsible for how everybody else responds. But we definitely can be responsible for how we respond. Let's see. Oh Lord, just ignore that. That tells you. Just ignore that one. But you want to be respectful. Ignore the last words there. And then how to like handle offensive posts, because I think like in the past couple of years, especially, you know, not only were we dealing with the pandemic, we're dealing with, you know, racial and social injustice, like people just acting all out of character, doing whatever they want to do. So there's a little test. It's the am I tripping test. Like if I see a post and it offends me, like somebody's like all lives matter and I need to go, and they go into this whole thing, I'm gonna read it and I'm like, am I offended and why? Okay, I'm offended. And I say that because sometimes you are tripping. So it's nice to like run it past somebody else. Like you may be tripping a little bit, but usually in those instances you aren't. And then depending on your connection with that person, you want to inform the poster of the offense. Now, this particular case, people were in the comments eating this person up. Like they were just like, you try to tell them nice, but then you could tell as it went in, that's not what happened. But if it's somebody that is just like somebody I'm not really connected to, like I only know you on social media, you're a big influencer, I may comment directly under the post. Depending on the level that I care, this is not what, because this is probably the better way, send them a message like, hey, I follow you, I saw this is disappointing. This is where you were wrong. This is how I was offended. And if I know if I'm offended, somebody else was offended. And then depending on how that person responds, I can say in this case, that person was quite defensive and again, gave this insincere apology. I unfollow people. I have no problem unfollowing people. We ain't real friends in real life, and you clearly don't align with where I am, like foundationally as a person, morally as a person, and you just don't care to change this. And I'm pretty sure you can block people. I'm big on unfollowing and block, okay? And then I think the best way is to do a general education and inform why it's offensive. Like, so say we're using that scenario, and what did I do? So I ended up unfollowing the person because I think I was just at a highly emotional point in the moment when I saw it. So many people were telling this person what they did wrong. They clearly weren't getting it. So I didn't think that I needed to waste my energy and breath to tell them what they, as an adult, should know that was incorrect. But I did post a public thing on my page, and I don't think it may be there, I don't know. But generally informing and educating like everybody who may be following me as to why this action was wrong. And I know you may hear back and forth as to like, man, I shouldn't have to explain, racism to my peers. And I agree with that. I'm not going to go back and forth with anybody. I'm not going to debate if something was racist or something was sexist or something was just, classist or offensive. I'm not going to go back and forth, not with an individual person. And I don't feel that I am entitled to spend my time educating that particular person. We just have way too much information that is available to us right now. But that's kind of how my little cycle of handling offensive posts. And that's what I would recommend people do. No, you do what you're gonna do, but I think that kind of covers it all. But it's big to think before you post. What do you want to post and why you want to post it? And I know a lot of this ends up being mindless if you spend too much time on social media, you just be posting everything. But like, who are you trying to reach? And then ask yourself, can it be seen offensive? It may be funny as heck to you. It may be funny to your friends, but could it be seen as offensive? And does this represent my brand in the best light? And you are your own brand. You don't even have to have a business to have, you are your brand. If somebody sees you, this is what they know you represent. Your profession, your family, and employer. We have to remember that all that stuff can be traced back to people who may not even had nothing to do with the post. Is my post marginalizing a group of people? Is it kind? Oh God, yeah, we need so much more kindness and things. And is this post playing into my biases? Yeah. Let's see. Oh, yeah, look, I meant to put a question one up on there. But, oh yeah, correction culture. I'm like going through the comments now on here, but oh, let's see here. How do I stop my share? Okay, stop sharing my screen. This is just how to connect with me if you did not know. All right, let's see here. But yeah, overall, I think that we have to remember that we're grown. Can't nobody force us to be doing what we're supposed to be doing. And most of the time, it's not going to be us. But it's like, how do we call out our friend? First of all, that person probably ain't really your friend if they're not willing to even listen and talk about the issue at hand. Because I mean, I can literally think of an entire. I had a friend since middle school who just did not see it, and now that if you just cannot see it after every single thing that has been visualized, or you think like things aren't a matter of black or white, or things aren't, it's not injustice if people just comply. We can't have these. I'm not having these arguments with anybody. If you have the energy to do it, go right ahead. It's correction culture. I had forgot I had said that, y'all. It's correction culture because this particular person also, another PA was like, we should be on one accord and helping this person. But it's like there comes a time where we have to wake up and be like, oh dang, we live in a different time. And it's not a matter of being sensitive. I want people to know that, like, it is truly traumatizing. Or like, I even think of issues of like not knowing when to speak up or how to speak up. I was part of the HOD, and I remember being in one of those meeting calls, and people wanted your colleagues, all your colleagues are just not there. I just want to let y'all know that. So you're going to be walking into a profession where you're already the minority, and people cannot really see these issues that could be impacting their coworkers. I know, like, I had made a whole post in AAPA huddle about, listen, your minority colleagues are not okay. So this is not cool. And here's a list of things. I think I had made a list of books because, listen, when I be under fire, y'all about to catch every single thing. If I'm like there, I'm like, nope, y'all about to get this, because I'm not a keyboard thug. I'm about to, and I will tell it to you. Let me see here. I'm going to go through the chats here. And if y'all have questions, oh yeah, have questions. I think another thing that I wanted to touch on was how Dr. Miles said, y'all are leading the way. I like how y'all got PAS leads. Y'all really are leading the way though, because it's through, we force the change. We enact the change. We are empowered and equipped, because there are some old practices that are just in place, and people are resistant to change because they have connected with a time where they didn't have to acknowledge us, they didn't have to respect us. And we as a team, because it's teamwork, we're the ones that are going to force people to do it. Like, I keep thinking about how big organizations put out statements. We were the ones that got it, like, your statement is not direct enough. We need to just call it like it is. We are against police brutality against Black people. Don't be sitting here trying to sugarcoat it and make it sound cute for the people who are uncomfortable. We have to always remember that anytime that you have felt that uncomfortable in speaking up and speaking out, just to be on the same level, you're already in the same level, and in many instances, but we're already on the same level. But anytime that you have to speak out and you feel like afraid, think of how uncomfortable you have been all the times you walked on eggshells, and you shouldn't have to. And you go with that same force. Forget everybody else being uncomfortable. I'm at the phase now where you uncomfortable, I've been uncomfortable. You don't like talking about racism, I don't like experiencing racism. You don't like assumptions. You didn't try to express this microaggression, but I'm just probably the only person that said something to you about it. I'm sure you said it plenty of times, or you thought things. And we have so much more power than what people think. So I encourage y'all to keep on fighting the hard fight, y'all, because it ain't easy. And I can't say it's ever going to be easy, but I think one day we just gonna wake up and be like, dang, look at, y'all remember how I did that? You remember when I said that? Let's see here. If y'all have questions, y'all can definitely ask questions. I'm gonna read through the comments or the chat. I'm sorry, is that how you said it?
Go ahead, Tiffany had a question.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Hey, okay, it's mine, because I think, so my question is, how do you think
the PA Instagram influencer culture is impacting our ability to diversify the profession when pre-PAs go on there, because they're getting all their I'm not saying they're getting all, that's a little bit much, right? But a lot of information they are searching is coming through social media in the younger generations, and they're seeing that. And is the answer really getting more influencers of color when the culture in the influencer culture is monetized to basically, I don't know how the PC says, but get people into PA programs just by buying and paying this and say, how, like, you know, yeah. So I'm gonna be completely honest. So I used to feel some sort of way, and I probably do subconsciously a little bit still. I never got in, like, I like social media. I feel like I'm a people watcher in general, so I just like to do it for that for that effect. And I'll post my stuff, but I'll be doing a lot of people watching. And to be completely honest, I feel that the people who are currently considered PA influencers are not PAs of color for the most part. They're very underrepresented. But then that small demographic of PA influencers that does exist, I feel that they, no, but they can't fight. No, no, they are charging pre-PAs. It like they keep it keeps a funnel of the same, if that makes sense. So they just keep bringing in more people who look like them and have the same resources they have, and we forget there's an entire group of people who could benefit if they just had the connect. So that's kind of why I do what I do, is because, man, had I pursued being a PA at this time, I would be like, dang, you want to charge me $200 to do what? Like, does that get me into PA school? Because $200 goes a long way. You know how many schools, 3 schools you could be applying to, or at least 1 application. Like, so what are you actually giving me? $699 for you to read my personal statement, and you cannot even connect with me personally. You don't really understand my struggles. Like, you've never been poor. You've never had, only 1 bathroom. And I know that those are first world problems, but these are real issues. So I think it kind of discourages up and coming people of color who really have the genuine care and the character to be an excellent provider and change their communities and change people's lives. It discourages them because they be like, dang, I don't have that. Or it feeds into the negative voice we already hear when we're applying, or confirms our imposter syndrome. Like, it blows it up more because we're like, dang, well, if I have to have doctor money, because my daddy ain't a doctor, my mom ain't a doctor, does that mean I'm not going to get in? So I think like some of the things that we can do in that instance is make sure that we are highlighting and just simple sharing, hey, did you know that this PA existed? And so that somebody else can reach out to that person, because everybody doesn't have the resources. And I'm big in, like, you're supposed to give back, like lead the way. So like, I can't help nobody if I'm like, well, I only can help you if you pay me $9.99, and then that's not even really helping. And I'm actually I just, don't get me started. That's a whole different talk. Like, we need to hold them accountable, because they get money for posting stuff or collaborating with brands and all that jazz, but are they really helping the community and helping your mission? So like, if you know somebody, like, for example, the PAC, when people are looking for a community just to be talking and just get information, I try and get people to, like, I point them in that direction, because there's a lot of PAs of color that I didn't even know exist until I, got on with that group. So let's see here. Supplemental, oh yeah. Application is just money, it's a money grab. And it kind of like how Dr. Miles was talking about some of those classes, and then you get the PA cat, like, why are we doing all this? We just need, in my opinion, we should just be doing a whole character test, meaning like, let me talk to you, go talk to my grandma, because you know what? They can read people. And I want to know, like, do you really care about people, or are you just doing this for the money? How can we make the admissions progress more equitable? Where do we begin with CASPA? Oh, yes. So the merchandise that I do sell, I use some of the money to help cover initial CASPA fees. And people don't realize that man, $179, or that times 2 or times 3, because I think there's a study that says like you need to apply to at least 7 PA schools for it to like kind of work for you. When you do that, I think like we need to create something more than, because I hate, you either have to be really poor or really rich, and the middle class gets left out. And why can't we just have like this fund of money that people from marginalized and minority groups can access to even apply, especially if they have the minimum requirements to be applying to schools. It shouldn't be like just needs based, and then I want you to wait about 2 weeks before I let you know if you got that money to get there. So I am a firm believer in helping people on the front end, because a lot of them don't even get in, or it's discouraging because it costs money. It costs money. And when we think like $179 ain't a lot of money, for some people that's a lot. That's cover phone bill, internet that you need to be doing what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah, so we definitely need some cash money. Let's see. You want to be a part of other ones who waive the fee. Oh yeah, ask them to waive fees. You know what? God says you have not because you ask not. So I'm big on that one too. You better ask questions. Like when people turn in their CASPA applications and they be like, can I ask? I'm like, if you don't ask the school if they got the information they needed, and if you don't ask the school, how can I be a stronger candidate? Yes, okay. Yes, oh yeah, travel fees. Okay, all right. Any other questions? That was a good one, Tiffany, because you had me going all down the other rabbit holes as to like, listen, y'all can promote those people, but and that's cool and all, but ask yourself, does it align with the mission? Is there somebody else who could better benefit from that connection? I'm not saying you cannot be connected with those particular PA influencers. It's just, direct the business somewhere else where you're gonna get more bang for your money. And by bang for your money, I mean like, connect them with somebody who offers the services for free. Like, and they may not be able to help everyone. I think that's the other thing too, because there's a lot of people I be wanting to help, and I cannot help everybody by myself because it's just me right now in life. But like, connecting with those people who offer free mentoring. I can think of 3 people off the top of my head that offer free mentoring. They may not take on everybody, but they're people from marginalized groups. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, PA schools. Yeah, this money. Oof. I feel like I don't know if I could afford it. I was a nurse, so I had some little nursing money, but man, now I understand why when I went to my interviews, people were freaking out like they didn't get in, because it's like I spent all this money to apply and show up for these interviews, and I was just like, oh, I'll just go back to work. But yes, this information isn't also sense. Oh yeah, well, you know what? You gotta dig, and we gotta not also we can't have any shame. Listen, if the help is out there, and if they tell me there's a Black scholarship, pay off my student loans, I'm going to apply for the Black scholarship with no shame, because I want them student loans gone. That's me personally. All right. Any other questions? Y'all got y'all have social responsibility. Y'all entering into a profession, and y'all motivate me so much. Y'all make me want to get like a little bit more energy to, but I need to come because I can't add another thing onto the list. Yeah. But I think this is such a great platform. You have a great mission to push through, and y'all got some pretty cool leaders, working with y'all as part of y'all team. So I love to see it.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Jackie. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. This is water, y'all. It's water.
All right, so thank y'all so much. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then Cabrile is gonna do our closeout.
say thank you. Just want to say thank you, Karina, for all that you've done in this organization, helping us get off the ground for the past 18 months here. It's been truly amazing and appreciated. I'm working alongside you as well for the majority of that time. It's been absolutely amazing to not only get to know you, but also get to know everybody else within our group. We really did do what we set out to do 18 months ago, which is to connect students from across the country and focus on how we can not only work on these issues, but also how we can support each other and find ways to improve PA education and the PA profession as a whole. So as Karina was mentioning, we have quite a few members who are thankfully graduating and moving on to get their Cs, and even a couple that already have gotten their certification and started working in the past few months here. So we're going to need some new blood heading into the organization to keep all this momentum going. Today's been an absolutely awesome day, and to not get too far into my closing remarks today, but today's been an absolutely awesome day and just a true measure of what we can do potentially moving forward, having bigger and even grander events moving forward. So we're really looking for more individuals to use the links that have been provided down in the chat to join our organization if you haven't joined already. Apply for a leadership position, a directorship position if you have any thoughts of PA leadership or in education, or if it's something that you may find time to do, or just continue to interact with us, whether it be on GroupMe or social media. That's always well welcome. There may be some situations which you think that you have gone through in PA school that others have gone through as well. You may be able to help somebody out in ways that you may not recognize at this time.
Thank you all so much for being here. Cabral, did you want to go into your closing message? Or was that basically it?
Nope, I will go ahead and go into the closing message. Once again, everybody, my name is Cabral Moorhead. I just want to tell everybody good afternoon and thank you once again for your attendance and participation in our first annual Combating Racial and Social Injustice in Medicine Conference. On behalf of all of our PA's lead directors, I want to thank you all for your support and making this event a tremendous success. We would like to go ahead and specifically recognize and honor all of our guests today. If I make any errors with pronunciation of names, please do forgive me. I have a difficult to pronounce name as well at times, so I do understand, where any discernment may come from that, but I do apologize and do know that I'm not, intentionally mispronouncing your name. But I'd like to honor Dr. Goodwin of South University in Savannah, Catherine Reed from NSBPA, the APHAC and PALH, including Dr. Robert Smith and Dr. Belusho Ogon Fititimi, our student speakers, Natalie Crump, Camila Crawford, Alexandria Leda, and Sarah Neem, Aaron Hunro, Dr. Monica Miles, and finally, Dr. Jackie Edwards for serving as our keynote speaker today. From that first meeting of PA's lead, our goal has been to connect PA students nationwide in hopes that together our experiences and voices could form a coalition strong enough to create the changes we strive to achieve in PA education, PA profession, and our communities. As someone who has been a part of this movement since the beginning, I'm truly proud that all we have accomplished over the past 18 months, and I believe that the impact of this conference will reverberate throughout the PA community. For all the attendees today, I hope that the messages shared throughout the conference today leave you with a hope for where we are as an organization and where PA education and profession at large is going in regard to combating racial and social inequality. It takes a group of brave, compassionate, and hardworking individuals to enact true change. And judging by today's turnout, it seems as though we have those individuals present in spades. Thank you once again to all of our guests, participants, and directors for making today as successful as it has been. And we hope that you all continue to interact and participate in our future events. If you would like to follow us on social media, please search for PA's lead in your medium of choice. Our search signals and also our website have been added to the chat below. For any PA students, please reach out to one of our directors to join our group meet, to interact with our directors and fellow PA students. We truly enjoy sharing ideas and strategies to achieve change within our programs and our communities. And then finally, if anyone has any lingering questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the chat or use the raise hand function, or again, you can just message any of us on social media, whether it's through the official PA's Lead account, or the account has also been tagging the directors and also many of our guests as well in our promotional materials over the past few weeks. So you can use those channels and avenues as well. But it's been absolutely an honor to speak with you guys today. And then also it's been wonderful to see everybody's participation today. So thank you again.
And before everyone goes, I do want to take 1 second. I want to personally give a shout out to our social media intern, Dana. All the flyers that you saw all on social media, and as well as our schedule that was posted in between conferences was all made by her. She is a pre-PA who we are hoping will join the ranks when she becomes a PAS during her schooling. She came in right in the middle as we were planning this conference. So she had to hit the ground running, and she did all the traits of a good PA student. And we personally, and me and the other directors, want to personally just just thank her for her hard work it has been to make all the promotional materials and continue to grow our social media page.
Dr. Jackie, I see you have your hand raised. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, I had a quick question. So how do people find the group me? Is it on your Instagram page in the, like, if you click the link?
That is a good question. I'm not sure if it's linked to the Instagram page, but I know that Nate put it in the chat earlier. We will put it in the chat again. And yeah, feel free to join us on GroupMe and follow the conversation.
So the reason I was asking, because I was sharing it on my on my social media, and I was like, join their GroupMe. So I will take a look at your page and see if I can, because is there a way that they can find it on the website? Because I didn't even know y'all had a GroupMe. I'm not even gonna lie.
So it is not. I just checked the Instagram and it's not on there, but I will make sure that it does get on there.
Okay.
And it is on the website.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other final questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cabral.
There have been some links to the GroupMe added to the chat today as well. So if you just scroll up in the chat a little bit, I think we can go ahead and add it one more time for everybody. Yep. So one more time down there as well. So if you would like to go ahead and join the GroupMe from here, of course, you can do that. And then also, if you want to just, if for anybody who's looking for the GroupMe, if you want to message just any of the directors or just message the PA's Lead page itself, we can always just direct you there to the link to the GroupMe as well.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here, for spending a portion or all of your Saturday with us. Please follow us and ask us any questions. We're happy to help and to keep the change going. Have a great day and happy studying.